Hello again, my meddling Scooby Doo fans, and welcome to another review into the world of Scooby Doo. So last time I continued my 2026 summer special with a review Season 2 Episode 7C of Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We talked about how it was another bad short due to the fact that the villain was terrible, the motive was kind of dumb and stupid, there was no atmosphere, and the setting was kind of generic and dull. But of course today, I'll be covering Season 2 Episode 8A of Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo, titled South Sea Scare, which was released on December 27th, 1980. The short synopsis of the first short is, the guys are vacationing in Hawaii when a hot lava erupts from a volcano and a lava monster who chases them all over the island. So normally I would tell you guys what DVD I'm watching this particular episode of Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo on. Unfortunately, Seasons 2 through 4 of Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo have yet to be released on any sort of physical media or DVD. So just like in my past Season 2 reviews and for future Season 2, 3, and 4 reviews, and for the purposes of this review, I'll be watching this short online, so apologies in advance for the quality of the short. Now, as far as the short's reception is concerned, I'm not really sure how fans feel about this particular short, but considering I and most of the Scooby-Doo community consider these shorts to be bad and awful, I doubt it's viewed very highly. But with that being said, what's my personal opinion on this particular short of Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo? Is it a good and underrated short? Is it another terrible short that continues the trend of the series and the trend of these shorts? Or is it an average, decent, middle-of-the-road short? Well, let's find out, shall we? So let's take a look at this short to see whether I think is a good or bad short of Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. The short begins with a friendly luau in Hawaii that ends shortly after a volcano erupts. One of the islanders exclaims that the music has woken up the lava monster. We get a nice solo by Shaggy on a ukulele as the islanders run off, and the lava monster shows up and chases the gang into the Barnacle's Beanery restaurant, and Shaggy fools him briefly by pretending to be a French waiter. I do find it odd that Shaggy somehow knows the lava monster, like, upon seeing the lava monster. Like, he doesn't question who it is. Like, he's just like, he doesn't say, like, oh, it's a monster or something like that. He somehow knows it's a lava monster, like, as if it's some legend that I guess the Islanders must have told them beforehand off screen, because they somehow got some context beforehand, because otherwise I have no clue why Shaggy and the rest of the gang, for that matter, would know who the lava monster is, unless if the Islanders told them some story about the lava monster and there's some kind of legend or myth about him. The foil almost works until they serve the lava monster his dinner, which turns out to be Scrappy. Scrappy sprays the lava monster with some water, and the chase continues where Scrappy ends up spraying the monster with even more water. The lava monster throws a frozen turkey at Scrappy, and the gang eventually escape, and the Islanders begin resuming their luau. Unfortunately, the lava monster shows up once again. Fed up, Scrappy carries off the lava monster and tosses him back into the volcano from whence he came. And the short ends with another adventure over, and the gang head off to their next destination.
Well, guys, how'd I do?
Why, not bad for a pup. Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
And Scrappy-Doo, too.
I'm going to give Season 2 Episode 8A of Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo 1 star out of 5. So yeah, we have another dumb and boring short, no surprise there. Same old, just a bunch of gags and set pieces. There's not really much to say about this particular short, so I really got no positives either. So I'm just going to go straight into the negatives and explain to you guys why I'm not really huge on this particular short of Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo. So starting with the negatives, my first one is that Fred, Daphne, Velma are completely absent from this particular short yet again. So you guys know by now, but I'm going to keep saying it until they come back. I'm not a huge fan of Fred, Daphne, Velma being absent from the story. To me, I think all 5 core members of the gang are a necessity. They should be required in every piece of Scooby Doo media. There's no reason why any member of the gang should not be involved in the story whatsoever. To me, that's just dumb and stupid. It takes away the core foundation of what makes Scooby-Doo Scooby-Doo. So I'm not a huge fan of Fred, Daphne, Velma being absent from yet another story, and it just being Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy. I have the same feeling with additional characters where I don't really like, them adding characters to the gang. I feel like that's unnecessary. Just like how I think it's unnecessary to have any of the 5 core members of the gang absent from a story. Then we have Shaggy and Scooby. Shaggy and Scooby were pretty weak in this short. They weren't their usual funny, cowardly selves. They weren't really that humorous in this particular short. They didn't really have a lot of good humor going for them in this, short at all. I didn't really find them particularly funny. And I didn't think they were that cowardly. I mean, yeah, it was a chase scene, but they didn't really feel like they were that afraid of this lava monster. They didn't really showcase much cowardice. They were just kind of there, and were just kind of, didn't really play any sort of integral role whatsoever or do anything noteworthy. They were just kind of just part of this long chase scene. Like they were just necessities for a chase scene. A void for the gags and set pieces, essentially. They were just, there for the gags and set pieces and weren't really there to fulfill any sort of basic purpose like they usually are. Next, we have Scrappy. Scrappy was also pretty weak in this short as well. Not for his usual annoying stuff like beating up innocent people or doing any stupid, dumb traps. He just kind of wasn't really that noteworthy. He was just kind of there. He didn't really stand out in any way, like, at least in my opinion. Like, I just don't think he really did a whole lot in this particular short that really stood out to me. Yeah, he put the lava monster back into the volcano after Shaggy suggested it, but I don't know. I don't really consider that noteworthy, and he just didn't really stand out in any good way. Like, he was just kind of there, just like Shaggy and Scooby. It was just, a way to have the gags and set pieces, essentially. Then we have the villain of the short, who I thought was very dull, in all honesty. So the main villain of the short is this lava monster. The lava monster is not scary or entertaining in the slightest. Like, it kind of feels very repetitive in its design. Like, it feels very similar to, I think it's like the stone monster from Fiesta Hostess and Aztec Ghost. It feels very similar to that design, but if he was coated in lava and fiery ash, essentially. Like, that's really what the lava monster felt like. He just felt like a reskin of that stone monster from the Scooby Doo show back in the Fiesta Hostess and Aztec Ghost episode. And he just didn't stand out anyway. He just kind of appeared and then disappeared. Like, this, as fast as he came, he went. And he wasn't scary in the slightest, despite, his looks and, the potential for threat. He wasn't really scary or threatening or creepy or eerie. He just was kind of a way to have goofy gags and set pieces. He wasn't fun or entertaining to watch either. He wasn't, he was just kind of there. And like Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy was just a way to fulfill the gags and set pieces. He just popped up out of nowhere. We get no context of who he is. Supposedly he's this legend on Hawaii. But there's no context to him. We don't know much about his backstory or what he is. We know he's a real monster, that's for sure. It's not a guy in a costume, which I'm also not a fan of, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I just, I don't really find him that remarkable of a villain. It's just, whatever. Like, he just pops up and then goes back into the volcano. Like, he's a nothing villain. Like, he's just, a requirement that's needed for these gags and set pieces. He doesn't do anything noteworthy at all in this particular short whatsoever. There was also no outside of costume element. There was no sort of mystery to the villain's identity. It was very clear-cut that this was a real lava monster. This was a real monster that came from the volcano. It was not, a costume villain like it should be. And you guys know by now that I'm not a huge fan of real monsters. I think it takes away the mystery. I think it doesn't work in Scooby Doo. I think it takes away the essential, ingredients of the formula. I think it takes away from what Scooby-Doo is. Scooby-Doo is primarily a mystery as well as horror, and I think that if you know that the monsters are real or the ghosts are real, there's not really a sense of mystery there. There needs to be mystery to the villain in some capacity, and a costume element, fulfills that. And to me, I think human horror is more interesting in Scooby-Doo and is an aspect that should be kept in Scooby-Doo, and it shouldn't be, actual real monsters or ghosts. I know some people feel differently about that, but for me, I'm very much a formula purist. I like it how it is. I don't think it needs to change. I don't think it needs to be tweaked. I think the formula is fine as it is, and I don't think I need to see real monsters or real ghosts. I'm not a fan of it. I think it should always be a person behind the costume, because there should be a degree of mystery to the villain. We should, there should be mystery there. We should be guessing, who the villain could be. because that's what's compelling about Scooby Doo, the mystery of the villain, the villain's identity, and the human horror of it, and how it's supposed to be, a gateway into Scooby Doo, into more mature and adult horror that does these sort of things. And I feel like it also makes Scooby Doo not very distinct, because it makes it feel like a knockoff of other shows that have real monsters and ghosts, instead of being its own thing where it portrays human horror, essentially. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of there being no costume element in this particular short. I hate that it's a real monster, and it sucks. There were also no suspects in this short. There was no pool of suspects that Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy interacted with to determine who the villain's identity could be. They don't interact with any sort of, pool of suspects, mainly because there is no mystery to the villain, and his identity. This is a real monster. So because there's no costume element and no mystery to the villain's identity, and we know it's a real lava monster from the volcano, it lacks, any sort of suspect pool due to the fact that there's no mystery present whatsoever. There was also no motive in this particular short. There was no sort of motive whatsoever for the lava monster. He had no clear-cut motive that I could distinguish in this particular short. He had no sort of goal or, that he was trying to reach, or any item that he was trying to get, or any sort of end game. It kind of just felt like he popped up as, a way to fulfill, like I said, gags and set pieces. He wasn't there for a particular reason. He wasn't there as an antagonistic force to the gang to achieve his own agenda and goals. Instead, he was just kind of there to fulfill gags and set pieces, to distract kids for 7 minutes. And there was no sort of, mystery there, or, any sort of end game or goal for the villain. So I don't really care that there's no motive. I hate that. I think that's stupid. So yeah, the lava monster has no clear-cut motive whatsoever. He literally just pops up, chases Shaggy and Scrappy for the fuck of it, I guess, and then just goes back into the volcano because Scrappy throws him in there. And then I guess that gets rid of him. Yeah, he just, as quick as he came, he went right back in and was quickly disposed of. Like, basically just was a plot device for gags and set pieces. Had no sort of purpose to the story. There was also no mystery in the short. There was no sort of underlying mystery throughout this particular short, or any sort of questions that I wanted answered throughout this particular short. Now, you could say that, the lava monster being unknown is a mystery of itself, but I would argue that it's more puzzling than, than a mystery. Like, it's puzzling in the way that he's just introduced with no context. Like, the best Scooby villains definitely, have some backstory or have something interesting about them that makes you, want to learn more about them. The lava monster is very generic, and it's just a reskin of the stone monster from A Fiesta Hostess and Aztec Ghosts, and he quickly just pops up and then goes back into the volcano. There's no real mystery whatsoever. He's just introduced with no fanfare. Apparently he's this legend on this island, I guess. I mean, I'm just making that assumption. Like, for all I know, he may not even be a legend, and just somehow these Hawaiian natives and Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy somehow know that there's a monster in this volcano. Because like I said in the review, it was very puzzling that Shaggy knew that this was a lava monster, unless if he heard some kind of legend about it off screen that we didn't see. So there was no context to to him whatsoever. He just arrived out of nowhere with no fanfare, and he wasn't interesting at all. And he came as quickly as he came, he went, and he was. As he went out with as much fanfare as he came in, and it just, there was no sort of mystery whatsoever for me. There was no sort of interesting mystery there. I don't really care about the context for him, because they don't really care to provide that context. They just use him as a plot device for gags and set pieces, and don't really take the time to flesh out this villain, which sucks. There were also no clues in the short. There were no sort of clues whatsoever that Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy found to help narrow down the list of suspects. Mainly because, like I said, there is no pool of suspects, because there's no mystery to the villain's identity. It's a real lava monster that comes from the volcano. And there's no clues to help point towards a motive because the villain has no motive. He has no sort of goal or end game. He's just a plot device used for a long chase scene filled with funny gags and set pieces to distract kids for 7 minutes, and has no nuance or mystery to him. So yeah, there's no sort of clues whatsoever because there's a lack of mystery. There's no mystery whatsoever. There was also no atmosphere in the short. There was no sort of atmosphere whatsoever that I found in this particular short. I felt no sort of tension or suspense or creepiness or eeriness from either the main villain of the short or the setting. I wasn't fearing for the gang's safety. I wasn't on the edge of my seat wondering what was going to happen next. I didn't find anything creepy or eerie about the villain or the setting. Completely devoid of any sort of atmosphere. It's very bright and vibrant, just like I said, goofy, wacky, kiddie, hijinks and gags and set pieces and a long chase scene, that was just there to, distract kids for 7 minutes. It had no sort of plot or mature storytelling or any sort of mystery or horror. It was completely devoid of any sort of atmosphere whatsoever. And my final negative is I found the setting of the short to be kind of very repetitive and generic. So the main setting of the short is Hawaii, and Hawaii has been done in Scooby Doo before. Back in Season 2, Scooby Doo, Where Are You? In A Tiki Scares No Fair, which is actually one of my favorite Season 2 episodes, and one of my favorite Where Are You episodes. Hawaii was the main setting. But unlike that episode where Hawaii was actually done quite well, this Hawaii was not fun to explore or were very interesting to look at. It was very bright and colorful and vibrant. And I know that's what Hawaii's like that, but it doesn't fit the tone of what Scooby-Doo, is. And, I feel like Where Are You captured Hawaii better, where you still showed the fun, nature of Hawaii, but also showcased, how Hawaii can be dark and, mysterious and horror-esque and spooky. And I feel like Where Are You captured that and made it interesting, whereas I think with this particular short of Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo, Hawaii is done in a very generic sense and isn't giving a lot of flavor or fun. It's very generic and repetitive because we've seen Hawaii done well before, and they don't really do anything this time to make it stand out and make it just as entertaining as the first time. So to me, I don't really care for, this outing in Hawaii. I much prefer the outing in Hawaii back in Where Are You? I feel like that was done better. This time it was very, very, generic and, dull and repetitive and just wasn't very interesting to explore and wasn't very interesting to look at. I just didn't really care for the setting in this particular short. We've seen it done better before, and, it just wasn't a fun setting. They don't do any fun setting to explore. They don't do anything to distinguish it from the last time. They don't do anything to make it interesting this time or set it apart from the previous Where Are You, outing. So yeah, I don't really care much for this particular setting. I think if you want to see a better version of a Hawaii-themed episode, go to A Tiki Scares No Fair. That is a way better episode and does the Hawaii setting justice and is much better executed. Overall, guys, I would personally not recommend the short to fans and newcomers of the show. It's just another dumb short that's filled with gags and set pieces, like I said, that is just boring to watch. It was so dull and boring to watch. I just wanted to get through it. These shorts have been so bad to go through that it's honestly, just a dull and dragging experience to go through. It's not fun to go through these shorts whatsoever. It feels like a chore, honestly, and it sucks, and thankfully I'm almost done with one season, but I still have 2 more seasons of shorts to go. Mercifully, Season 3 is shorter, but Season 4 is just as long as Season 2, so Season 4 is going to be a doozy. But yeah, these shorts have just not been fun to tackle. There's very little substance to them. They're very boring and dull. They're just, they're good distractions for kids, but that's all they're for, and they don't have, the great storytelling that the previous 3 shows have, and don't have the great storytelling that Scooby-Doo is known for. So I just wouldn't bother with this short. There are better pieces of Scooby-Doo media out there that are more worth your time. And this is just another dumb short that just continues the trend of the series. and just, in a downward spiral. The series has yet to hit any sort of good or great territory. I have yet to witness a good or great episode. I am praying for a good or great episode, and I still have yet to experience it in this particular, show. The highest we can get is a decent rating. And even then, it's tough to even get that in these particular shorts. So hopefully we do have 2 more seasons, and we're almost done with season 2, but hopefully one of these shorts can be at least decent, maybe even good. Maybe we can find a diamond in the rough in here. I would like to, because at least if there is something good, then maybe I'll have more to talk about. But as it stands, it's just the same old, and I wouldn't really bother with this particular short. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the short. Do you like the short? Do you think I'm being too harsh on it? Or are there more positives that you see that I don't see? Do you disagree with me? Do you think it's, better than I make it out to be? Do you agree with me? Do you think it's, a bad short? It's a terrible short? Or do you think it and has no redeeming factors whatsoever? Or maybe you think it's below average and has some redeeming factors, but it's still not great? Or are you somewhere in the middle where you think it's average and decent and okay, but it's neither good nor bad? I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any other content, obviously I have more Scooby Doo reviews on the way. This is a Scooby Focus channel, so we cover all things ranging from the TV shows, films, video games, and books. So if you're a diehard fan like me, or even just a casual or a newcomer to the franchise, and you love talking all things Scooby Doo, and want to join in on each individual discussion for each individual TV show episode review, movie review, video game Let's Player review, or book review, then basically just come join the channel and experience some amazing Scooby-Doo content. And finally, before I let you guys go, I also recently created a new YouTube membership. It's nothing major or special, just one extra step you guys can go towards, to help further support the channel if you would like to. It's completely optional. If you want to help this small YouTuber out and love the channel very much and want to go that one extra mile or one extra step, then I would very much appreciate it. If you do decide to join, there are 2 specific tiers. There's the first tier, which is the mystery solver tier, which is for $2.99, where you get perks such as custom loyalty badges, custom emojis, shoutouts at the end of my videos, as well as in video descriptions. Members only live chats where you get the first say and only say in my, public live streams, members only live streams if I decide to do those in the future. And behind the scenes photos and personal updates where I don't share anywhere else. You can also join at my second tier, which is the Master Sloop tier for $4.99, where you get all the perks I just mentioned, plus early access to new videos and members-only polls, where you get to decide what secondary projects that I get to discuss along the mainline TV show episode reviews. Obviously, it'll be in chronological order, whatever I cover, but you can decide what I can cover alongside TV show episode reviews. This is between the months of November and May, where the normal months, the non-special months. So it could be Scooby-Doo related, like I can cover the films or the video games or the books alongside the mainline TV show episode reviews. Or it could be non-Scooby-Doo related and could be, superheroes like Marvel or DC, action heroes like James Bond or John Wick, horror like Psycho and Saw, sci-fi horror like Alien and Predator, mystery like Sherlock Holmes, monsters like Godzilla and King Kong, and other shows that I, haven't covered in a while but would like to go back to, like maybe Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir, Sleepy Hollow, Treadstone, and maybe some new ones like the original 1963 The Fugitive, the 1978 Incredible Hulk show, the 66 Batman show, and many others that I have in the can if you guys would be interested in my thoughts on those as well. But you can also decide what I do for my special months. So for example, you can decide what I do during my summer special. The summer special is essentially from June to August, where I cover particular, either the Scooby-Doo franchise or something non-Scooby-Doo related. So for those months, you can decide what for those 3 months I cover, which, like I said, could be Scooby-Doo related or non-Scooby-Doo related. And then for September, I have Scooby Month, which is in dedication and celebration for Scooby's birthday, but also Scooby-Doo Waryu's anniversary. So I like to do something special for that month because to me, September is Scooby's birth month. It's a special month. So I go out of my way to, you know, celebrate Scooby that particular month with either, you know, covering his TV show episodes, movies, video games, or books. So you guys get to decide which of the big four mediums they get to cover during that month. And then in October, which is Halloween season, spooky season, which is my Halloween special, you guys can decide whether I tackle something, you know, related to the Scooby Doo franchise or something non-Scooby Doo related that's another horror-related property that you guys would be interested in me covering during October. So if you guys are interested in any of that, then you can sign up at either of these two tiers. Obviously, this is completely optional, but if you do decide to join, I thank you guys so much in advance, and I appreciate anything you can throw my way. In my next video, I'll be back tomorrow to continue my 2026 summer special with a review Season 2, Episode 8B of Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo, titled Scooby Swiss Miss. I'm not really sure what to expect with this particular short, but considering most of the shorts have been awful up to this point, I don't have high expectations going into it, but you never know. So if you want to know my thoughts on Season 2, Episode 8B of Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo, Scooby Swiss Miss, then come join me tomorrow. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.